Hello, everybody, and welcome to my long-awaited Backrooms Complete Timeline video. In today's video, we are going to take a look at the entire story of Kane Pixel's entire Backrooms series. So, before we get started, I wanted to give a spoiler warning for the movie. The movie events will be discussed in this video at length. I will leave the time cards on screen for when, and the time codes for when we're going to discuss the film. So if you have not seen it yet, you can skip it after the film section is discussed. No more movie spoilers will be in the video. Real quick, I did want to give a shout out to another YouTuber, Red, as I've already shouted out in multiple of my other videos, for developing her own timeline video that got me interested in making this one. Well, I was reading it at the exact same time that she published hers, but all of her videos have done a really great job of like enlightening this thing, and I kind of think she paved the way for people like me to make theory videos on this. I also want to credit her and other people in Kane's Discord for the development of the Ivan Beck flood theory, which will be discussed in this video. Also, as I go along in this video, I'm going to be describing events that are implied, not necessarily shown on screen. And when I do that, there will be an asterisk that will appear next to the date in which I am discussing it. I'm doing it this way to kind of describe the entire story as if it was one linear thing. I'm not going to jump around between videos and say, well, in this video, I'm just going to tell it as if it's a straight up one-to-one story, and in that I'm going to try to connect some dots through using the little asterisks. Also, to determine some vernacular, if you aren't familiar with Kane's series, some of the stuff might be kind of strange to you. So threshold refers to the door, the machine that that Async uses to enter and exit the backrooms, the thing that they use to open it. Bacteria and the life form is the bacteria monster. Still life is a copy of a human being in the complex. We're going to discuss that at length. A null zone is a no-clip point, so the traditional sense of falling into the backrooms, you fall through a null zone. That's what I'm going to refer to it as. Standard is the real world, and the backrooms themselves are known as the complex. So I'm going to be using all these terms. I think that's all the terms that we really needed to specifically define. I will go into much more detail as we go along. So without further ado, let's begin. This story really begins on July 16th, 1931. Ivan Beck is born to Doris and Antonin Beck in Karlovy Vary, Czechoslovakia. Between 1931 and 1937, Ivan Beck's family immigrates to the United States, possibly to New York, and then moving somewhere to the Midwest. I'm going to assume it's Indiana. The reason I say that Ivan's family would have moved to Indiana and why they would have spent some time in New York is that Kane mentioned that Ivan knew the artist George Brem. George Brem only lived in a few places in his life, those being New York, Indiana, and Martha's Vineyard in Massachusetts, and I believe New York and Indiana are the two most likely places he would have encountered Ivan. In between January and February 1937, Ivan's family home is destroyed in the Ohio-Mississippi flood disaster. In between 1937 and 1972, Ivan Beck grows up and begins to study nuclear physics and quantum mechanics, possibly spending time at the Booker T. Washington Institute in Erie, Pennsylvania. In August of 1972, Ivan is conducting a test on a model fusion reactor. Massive solar flare activity causes the machine to overload, giving Ivan a glimpse into the complex for the first time. Following this incident, Ivan suffers from post-traumatic amnesia and a blind eye. The complex then begins to build itself out from Ivan's memories. Between 1972 and 1982, determined to recover his memories and discover the true nature of what he saw in the complex, Ivan spends a decade developing the prototype for what would become the low-proximity magnetic distortion system. On May 10th of 1982, Ivan demonstrates the low-proximity magnetic distortion system prototype at Oak Ridge National Laboratory under the supervision of Philip R. Heyman. The demonstration is a success. Between 1982 and 1988, Ivan Beck is hired as the vice director of the Async Research Institute in San Jose, California. He begins work as the head of Project KV-31. The name of this project is a direct reference to his birthplace and birth year, Vary, and 1931. In April of 1988, Ivan Beck holds a press conference in which he describes the intention of the program behind the low proximity magnetic distortion system. Ivan states that with the full backing of the United States government, the project will provide a solution to all current and future storage and residential needs, saving billions of dollars on property construction and management. Between 1982 and July 1st, 1988, Async builds and tests the low proximity magnetic distortion system 2 times. On July 2nd, 1988, Async conducts test number 3 of the low proximity magnetic distortion system. The test fails to make contact with the complex, but provides valuable data. Between July 3rd, 1988 and October 16th, 1989, Async upgrades the low proximity magnetic distortion system and conducts tests number 4 and number 5. On October 17th, 1989, Async conducts test number 6 of the low proximity magnetic distortion system at 5:03 Pacific Standard Time. As this test is progressing, the Loma Prieta earthquake occurs at the exact same time. The force of both the earthquake and the opening of the threshold result in a power outage in the Async building. When the power comes back on around 10 minutes later, it is revealed that first contact with the complex has been established. The opening of the threshold triggers a fault line which causes the Loma Prieta earthquake. This earthquake causes billions of dollars in property damage and kills 63 people while injuring thousands. Between October 18th and November 13th, 1989, Async repairs the threshold and develops initial safety protocol regarding entering the complex and begins to map out and analyze the sublevel. They add a decontamination chamber, but no proper heating in the threshold room. On November 14th, 1989, Async analyzes the light fixtures and ceiling tiles on the subdivision. They discover that although the panels are abnormally long, the light fixture appears to operate normally and appears as normal as any office lighting fixture would. At the end of the video, it is revealed that all light fixtures in the complex, or at least on the subdivision, are the exact same copy. Between October 17th, 1989 and February 2nd, 1990, missing persons cases continue to rise at an unexplainable rate. Nicholas Bolton, Margaret Watson, Ellis White, James Ismail, Janice Scott, and an unnamed man are all reported missing. Meanwhile, Async continues to explore the complex. They develop new operating procedures, including a safety guideline and an auditory guidepost, removing the decontamination chamber, and install a protocol to enter the complex only in groups of 3 or more. On February 3rd, 1990, during a routine layout analysis expedition into the complex at around 10 a.m., a team of 4 researchers, headed by Dr. Mark Bloom, find the body of Nicholas Bolton covered in an unidentified fungus. On February 5th, 1990, the Async Department of Biomedical Sciences conducts an autopsy of the body of Nicholas Bolton. An unnamed scientist details that the body's decomposition appears to have been stunted. Portions of the body stopped decaying and were totally sustained, while other areas were completely overtaken by a bacterial culture that the researcher identifies as a mutated strain of simple hay bacillus, a bacterium found in human digestive tracts and soil. This bacteria will later be revealed to be the cause of the life forms seen later on in the complex. The bacteria takes over the bodies of people who have died in the complex and uses parts of their body to mimic speech, walk, and hunt. Between February 3rd and February 28th, 1990, Async extracts as much bacteria from the site of Nicholas's body as possible and continues to map out the location surrounding where he was discovered. On the morning of March 1st, George Levy, Marvin Lee, Ronald McCarthy, and Peter Tench are sent into the complex to conduct a routine layout analysis. Peter Tench, the camera operator of the team, notices a group of voices emanating from a hallway.
Guys, can you hear this?
When he goes to investigate, a large flash of light occurs, and without the team realizing, Peter disappears. At around 12:25 p.m., the rest of the team becomes aware that they lost track of Peter. This prompts an immediate withdrawal with response back to standard for all personnel in the complex. Now, if you're thinking, well, what happened to Peter? Don't worry, we're going to get back to him later. From March 2nd to March 4th, 1990, Async conducts several days of significant search efforts to locate Peter, but are ultimately unsuccessful at locating any trace of him. New internal procedures are adopted following this incident, including the construction of a threshold outpost, as well as radio communications between all expedition teams and Standard. On March 5th, 1990, Async continues construction of the threshold outpost. They set up motion sensor cameras across Subdivision A. These cameras are designed to record when motion and or significant noise is detected. At 1:06 a.m., Cam 2 detects a strange metallic clanging noise. At 2:13 a.m., Cam 3's microphone fails. At 3:53 a.m., Cam 5 spots a life form peer around the corner, then disappear back to where it came from. Estimating around March 6, 1990, the next day, Async sets up rudimentary motion sensors in the area which the life form was spotted, and a few members of the Async team become aware that there may be intelligent life in the complex. Now, pausing for a second, the reason I'm saying a few members of the Async team is because Kane once stated in an interview with Wendigoon that not everyone on the team has equal information, and he specifically said to ignore motion detected for reasons when referring to Async members knowing about life forms in the complex. So it's my assumption that supervisors in Async, the ones that watch the motion detection video, see the life form, are the ones that test for its area, like where it was, but I don't believe that they inform the rest of the team, and we'll see that in other events to follow. On March 11th, 1990, Async completes the construction of the Threshold Outpost, as well as document their discovery of new areas of the complex. This includes a wallpaperless room and a room with a large pipe spewing out water. Async also makes note of a phenomenon they call null zones, which are areas in which electromagnetic fields allow for items and potentially people to pass between Standard and the complex. Estimating March 15th, 1990, following Peter's disappearance, Async's security team fakes a car crash near a vineyard to cover up Peter's death. In the weeks following, a funeral is held for Peter. On April 18th, 1990, Async discovers a gallery area with many paintings on the wall, as well as a unique wallpaper and ceiling tiles. Between March and May 1990, Async continues to expand its staff, hiring several new researchers onto Project KV-31. Among these hires is senior engineer Clyde, who takes on the role of a supervisor and reports directly to Ivan Beck. On May 6, 1990, while conducting a layout analysis, George Levy, Marvin Lee on camera, Mark Bloom, and a researcher named Kim make the most shocking discovery Async has seen yet. While traversing the complex, the team discovers a room with 35 pits, separating them and a mysterious door at the far side of the room. Mark decides to make the walk across the pitfalls to the door, asking the others to notify Clyde of the situation. Mark crosses the pits and, after opening the door, is shocked at what he was witnessing. He asks Marvin to quickly cross the pits himself to film the phenomenon. As Marvin is making his way across, he loses his footing and falls down one of the pits. Marvin survives the fall, save for an injured shoulder. George is sent back to Standard to retrieve a rope to pull Marvin back up to the surface, and Mark is instructed to make his way back across the pits carefully. As Marvin is awaiting rescue, he hears a human voice call out from down the hall.
What was that?
What was what?
I don't know.
Marvin investigates the noise and discovers a neighborhood bathed in red light. As Marvin investigates the neighborhood in an attempt to find the person calling out, he remarks that a researcher named Miller may be correct about the nature of the null zones. As Marvin enters the house which he believes the person is in, he discovers inverted turn signs sticking out of the floor. While approaching the basement of the house, Marvin's camera flashes, and audio from a CBS interview from 2015 can be heard. This audio and visual interference, as well as temporal interference, signal that Marvin has crossed into a null zone. When Marvin enters the basement, he discovers cardboard beds, shoes, a backpack, and several numbers in a pile. He tells the rest of his team that he thinks someone has been living in this basement. Just as they begin to question that, the voice calls out again.
It's not possible. Hey! Can you hear me? I think I got him.
Sorry, can you repeat that? Marvin?
That's not a person.
What is that?
That is not a fucking person!
What?
As Marvin looks around the corner, he discovers a life form at the end of the hall. The life form screams and rushes after Marvin, who makes a break for it. As Marvin is running back to the hole, he turns and noticeably does not see the life form behind him. Marvin makes it back to the hole just as George sends down the rope for him to climb to safety. When Marvin's team returns to the threshold outpost, Supervisor Anthony Dawkins receives them. The footage of Marvin's encounter is taken and reviewed by Clyde and another supervisor, while Dr. Kirk Maxwell makes his way to a secure phone call. As he does this, Clyde and the other supervisor are horrified by the discovery of the life form. Maxwell makes a call, potentially to Ivan Beck, about next steps due to a Department of Energy presentation that is occurring the following day. Async works quickly to secure the area to ensure the success of their tour. They construct a temporary wooden barricade around the entrance to the Pitfalls area, as well as construct a blast shield around the large window in the Threshold outpost. On May 8th, 1990, Async presents what they call the A-Space project to the Department of Energy, outlining the goal of the Threshold and Project KV-31 to use the complex to provide storage, residential space, and corporate space to the world. In this same presentation, Async also outlines their intention to construct multiple thresholds. Async then takes James Watkins, the director of the Department of Energy, and another Department of Energy rep on a tour of the Threshold building and the Threshold outpost, as well as a select area of the complex. As they begin negotiations on a contract, a motion alert is sent out from the complex. At the same time that Async is delivering the tour to the Department of Energy, Peter is lost in the complex. Following the flash that separates him from his team, Peter makes it back out to the hallway and calls out for George and Marvin, but can't locate them. Panicked, Peter attempts to navigate his way back to the threshold. While traversing the complex, he discovers a few new spaces, including a room with remains in the middle of the floor and a giant vent-like structure on the back wall. He also finds a small, dark room with forest wallpaper, an axe, giant wheelbarrows, and the facade of a farmhouse on the wall. After 30 or so minutes of traversing the complex at approximately 5:30 p.m., Peter discovers the Threshold outpost, which is completely foreign to him as it was constructed after his disappearance. Peter enters the room, screams out, and a motion alert goes off, alerting the researchers and now the Department of Energy of his presence. Following Peter's return, Clyde is called down to KV-31 to recover Peter. Having joined the project after Peter's disappearance, Clyde is unsure who Peter even is. Clyde then calls Ivan to inform him of the incident. After Ivan interrupts him to ask how the negotiations with the Department of Energy went, Clyde informs him that the Department of Energy approved Async's contract. After getting back to the topic at hand, Ivan becomes panicked and instructs Clyde to wipe all evidence of Peter's return off the cameras and move him to a secure room until further notice. Clyde then tells him to stop, and then becomes aware that Peter is the infamous researcher who disappeared almost 2 months ago. Now, Ivan's reaction to Peter's reappearance is implied here. I'm using the dialogue that Clyde has towards the end, where he asks Ivan whether or not this is him, and also says, well, probably over the cameras. I'm implying here that Ivan says, did anyone see Peter? And to which Clyde would then reply, yes, over the cameras maybe, but not physically. So that's a little bit of an asterisk there, but you'll see that on screen. Moving on. Between May 9th and May 16th, 1990, a select group of doctors administers a panel of tests on Peter to determine what had happened to him in the 2 months that he had been missing. Those tests only concluded that Peter was in excellent health, which puzzles both the doctors and Async. Async supervisors, meanwhile, review the footage of Peter's ordeal and determine that during the flash, he was transported 2 months forward in time. A team of researchers is set out to place motion sensors and equipment to analyze the area where Peter disappeared. Peter is told to hang tight as Async works to reintegrate Peter in society despite him being declared legally dead. On May 17, 1990, Peter illustrates a picture of a scientist standing alone in a room while staring at silhouettes of a crowd of people, illustrating what he heard before time travel. Ads begin to circulate on TV and through flyers for Captain Clark's Ottoman Empire furniture store in Santa Clara, California. Peter also begins to show symptoms of paranoid schizophrenia, deluding himself into believing that Async and everyone in it is an illusion created by the complex, and there must be an alternate threshold, like the one he entered from, to escape to. He also notes on one of his drawings, if the wind is right, you can sail away, which is a reference to the Christopher Cross song Sailing that Ivan would often play at the facility. On the night of May 22nd, Peter breaks away from his room and enters the complex after hours using stolen credentials, attempting to discover the alternate threshold he believes exists and will take him back to the real world. On May 25th, 1990, Async ventures back out into the complex to conduct an expedition into rooms 14D and 14C, which is where Marvin and his team had discovered the Pitfalls. A team led by Clyde sends a rover to scout the area first. Once it is confirmed to be clear of life forms, Clyde notifies Standard that they're ready to send the team down. A team consisting of Mark, Marvin, and George heads down to 14D ahead of everyone. They measure out the pitfalls and alert Clyde that the area is clear. As more researchers arrive, the group splits off into 2 teams. Team A constructs a walkway across room 14D, while Team B, consisting of Mark, Marvin, and a researcher named Randall Tachi, explores room 14C. Following Pitfalls, Mark has been trained to use a Remington 870 shotgun for armed expeditions into unknown areas. As the team progresses into the dark room 14C, Randall discovers a map outlining the immediate area that appears handwritten. As Mark attempts to call in their discovery to Standard, the signal goes dead. As Team B makes their way back, Peter lunges out from the darkness and takes Mark's gun from him. The team is shocked that Peter is still alive, and he tells them that Async took his life from him. Mark's radio suddenly comes to life when Team A calls him, and Mark responds that he needs immediate armed support, calling Peter a hostile who is holding them at gunpoint. Marvin begs Mark to stop before Peter tells them he's sorry before shooting Mark with the Remington, leaving him coughing up blood and in critical condition. After shooting Mark, Peter makes a run for it, turning the shotgun on multiple researchers as he exits the threshold and progresses through Async. Dr. Kirk Maxwell manages to disarm Peter, but he avoids apprehension and makes it to the freight elevator and ultimately to the surface. Now, Peter is either killed by Async's security staff as they pursue him through the hills, or is killed later via lethal injection. This is a period where we kind of get into a little bit of a gray area with the story. There is a moment at the end of Damage Control where you see somebody on a street corner through CCTV footage. I personally think that that is Peter, and that the lethal injection like flashes towards the end of this video kind of imply that Async injected him with something before he escaped, or potentially snuck into his house or something after. But we'll get to the cover-up in a second. Due to the incident, Ivan decides that all staff should remain at Async overnight, even though he himself is still not there. The next morning, an Async supervisor details to the whole staff exactly what happened to Peter, his time travel, the attack of Mark, and his escape. He informs the staff that Peter died after falling into a large rock during his escape, a story that I personally think is false. To not hold on to the fact that Peter has been dead this whole time. Project KV-31 is so much bigger than any one person. On May 29, 1990, Marvin is recorded by a Department of Energy phone tap, calling George to complain about the cover-up of Peter's death. He finds it unrealistic that the DOE did not have the resources to fix Peter's situation. George tells him to calm down, to which Marvin tells him, "What if next time it's you, huh? Or me?" George gets Marvin to relax by assuring him that Async's team will not let an incident like this happen again, as multiple other people have expressed the same sentiment to George. George then films Async's continued expedition into room 14D. Since reunion, the team has finished the walkway and begun to explore the pit where Marvin fell, as well as behind the door. George is shown the strange glitch pattern on the wall, as well as the dead-end room down the hall, with tables and a soccer ball stuck in the wall, and a hill with a plastic lawn chair on top. It is believed by the community that Mark witnessed an expansion event, which we will get into a little bit later, that created this room, but since Mark interrupted it, did it imperfectly. Between May 30th and June 28th, 1990, Async ventures out deeper into the complex, setting up more cameras that feed back to the facility/threshold outpost. Async may have constructed a second threshold outpost. June 19th, 1990. Async researcher Naren Warren is separated from his team during a routine expedition. He attempts to contact Standard using a makeshift radio, requesting rescue. As he does this, he discovers a new area of the complex he did not notice before. As he investigates, he finds hanging banners, advertising furniture, and pirate ship wheels no-clipped into the wall. As he progresses, he is pursued by a gigantic monster. As he goes to flee, he runs into a dead end and is killed. Clark, the failing owner of Captain Clark's Ottoman Empire furniture store in Santa Clara, California, comes across a stable null zone in the basement of his store, as well as an Async security cam and a cardboard cutout of a caveman. As Clark investigates another room, something destroys the caveman cutout. Clark then flees back to the room that he entered from. Clark then spends the next few days investigating the complex. After about 2 or so days, he goes back to his therapist, Dr. Mary Klein, to describe his discovery. Noticing that she is resistant to his claims, he vows to come back with proof. Clark then enlists the help of his employee Kat and her boyfriend Bobby to document the complex. Clark takes Kat and Bobby to a large hole in the ground and sends Bobby down to investigate what's below. Bobby then enters a very dirty room with lots of laundry on the floor, then finds something in the darkness that comes after him. He is pulled up by Clark and Kat, but the rope is tugged by the monster and pulling them all down into the hole. Bobby is attacked and killed by the monster, and Kat takes off after him. Clark follows closely behind with a camera. Eventually, Clark discovers 2 still lives near a Christmas tree before running into a pool area. As he tries to help Kat, who is stuck on the other side of the wall, something gigantic picks up his camera. After a few days pass, Clark calls Mary and tells her that he isn't coming back. Mary, concerned, goes to Clark's store and discovers the null zone herself. After traversing the complex, she discovers Clark near a giant mural he drew. Clark then incapacitates Mary and forces her to have quote-unquote dinner with himself and 3 other still lives. During this dinner scene, it is revealed that Clark has killed Kat. Clearly, in the couple of days he's spent in the complex, Clark's mental state has declined rapidly. He resumes a role-playing exercise him and Dr. Klein tried in her office earlier in the film. It's during this that it's revealed that Clark does not want to change his own behavior, and considers that everything that happened to him in his life was not his fault. Mary cracks because of this and realizes that she can't fix her own problems through trying to help other people. As they're having this conversation, the still life in the corner that resembles Clark's wife Barbara takes off running, and in walks Captain Clark, a gigantic still life recreation of Clark. As Clark tries to reason with it, it picks him up and kills him. Mary gets away and begins to flee from Captain Clark, going through a number of different spaces until she enters a little copy of Clark's store. In the middle of this store is another caveman cutout tied to a bunch of fire extinguishers. Once this trap is set off, noxious fumes fill the room as Mary continues to flee from Captain Clark. Once she escapes this grasp and enters a tiny crack in the wall, she is discovered by Async. Async takes her and the now incapacitated Captain Clark still life back to the facility. Mary is then interrogated or questioned by a Async researcher named Phil, and her fate is left ambiguous. At the end of the film, we are shown a recreation of Mary in this exact moment. Presumably in 1991, a recording of the Simpsons episode Bart Gets Hit by a Car is interrupted when a Spanish cough medicine ad is sent back in time from the early 2000s, interrupting the broadcast in 1991. More evidence of Async's meddling with space-time thanks to the threshold. In June 1991, the archive.tar file of all of Async's explorations up until March 11th, 1990 is compiled. July 4th, 1991. While filming an indie film with his friends, a boy named Kane falls through a null zone into the complex. During his initial exploration, he discovers writing on the wall that says, "God closed his eyes and don't move, stay still." He is then stalked and pursued by a life form. While being chased by this life form, Kane jumps down a hole in the floor. Now, I personally believe that this hole is a null zone, and that this is the moment where Kane is transported 5 years into the future, which is why the clapperboard says 1991, and the description says 1996. I'm going to continue the rest of Found Footage 1 right now, but just note, in my personal opinion, the rest of this video takes place in 1996, not in 1991. Now in 1996, Kane discovers a gallery area with a recreation of the Holiday Inn at London Heathrow Airport. This area is directly connected to the area in which another no-clip victim, Madison, explores in Found Footage 2. Kane also discovers a chasm with the same sign that exists outside the Threshold outpost, now huge and replicated thousands of times, as well as a hallway that looks very similar to one found in Async. Kane eventually makes his way back to the classic complex, where he is once again pursued by the lifeform. This time, as he's cornered just before he's about to slide down into a hole, the lifeform grabs him, killing him as the camera falls back through a null zone into the sky and lands on the ground to be discovered on September 23rd, 1996. Now again, all that stuff that occurs with Kane can be attributed to either 1991 or 1996. I just think it's a little bit less confusing to say it all out right there, but I do believe, for timeline purposes, I'm going to refer to it again. But now we're on our next event, which would be August 19th, 1995. A girl named Madison films herself discovering a null zone in her garage. After testing it by throwing wood chips and baseballs into it, she sticks a tape measure down the null zone. After a few seconds, the null zone vibrates and rapidly expands, swallowing her, dropping her into the complex. As Madison explores, she discovers a set of large dining room chairs, a couch, a large hole in the floor, and a room that reveals multiple floors of the complex with considerable wear, including falling ceiling tiles and some bacteria on the wall. She then discovers a car that has seemingly fell through a null zone and crashed into the wall. Quick note here, this car is not the same as the one found in the unlisted video that also no clips into the complex. It is a different car. As she approaches the car, she sees that the person who crashed it clearly was injured critically, leaving bloodstains on the floor and the wall. Madison follows the trail into a back room, where she discovers the life form nesting. She also discovers a George Braun painting on the wall, who is an artist that Kane said that Ivan was familiar with and actually knew. She then investigates the painting just as the life form wakes up and chases her out into the rest of the complex. As she is pursued by the life form, Madison witnesses multiple flashes of a green light down several hallways. Eventually, she's cornered, and suddenly the green light overtakes the room, and Madison is caught inside. The camera turns off, and is revealed that somebody is watching this tape back in standard. Wind chimes can be heard at the end of the video, which hints that Ivan is the one watching the video. Again, a little asterisk there because we don't know that for sure. The green light that Madison sees is the expansion that Mark witnessed during Pitfalls. It's the same green light, and you could see at the end of the video, it kind of like tilts out, or like curves out the wall that Madison's looking at with the camera. This is how the complex builds itself out, using this green light. Whether or not Madison is killed due to the expansion is TBD or unknown, but what is known is obviously her camera makes it back to the real world and eventually in the hands of potentially Ivan Beck. Now, there's no date for this video, but in the description of Backrooms Found Footage 2 is the video home_27647.mov. This video is a compilation of home movie shots, potentially from the camera of Madison, the girl who no clips in, or potentially from the person who died in the backrooms. Let me explain that idea a little bit. So, in this video, we can clearly see that the room in which the body of the person who was driving the car and died in is a direct replica of a house that is shown in this video. You can see the banister, and even that back room is the exact same, and the George Brem painting on the wall is the exact same one that is in the complex, the one that Madison finds. If we're continuing with the idea that the backrooms built itself out from people's memories, it would then make sense that if this is the home movie of the person who died in there, and their memories are reflected in the room in which they actually died. Now, this is a very big asterisk on this whole thing, 'cause this is just a theory, but that personally is my interpretation of this. But it is entirely possible that this is Madison's home movies, but it would seem kind of strange that she wouldn't recognize the room that she's in if it is in fact a replication of her own home. So that's home.movie. Again, I have no idea where to put this on the timeline because it doesn't have a date, but we're just going to stick it here because it's relevant. Again, in 1996, I personally believe the second half of Found Footage 1 occurs here. Before we get into this, Backrooms Found Footage 3 can occur anytime between 1995 and 2002. A radio in the beginning montage of home movies in the beginning mentions the Oklahoma City bombing, which took place in 1995, and Ravi, the main character of this video, mentions a company named Monsanto, which dissolved in 2002. Found Footage 3 follows a young man named Ravi who enters the complex after investigating a strange noise in his basement. While searching his basement, Ravi discovers a broken glass sliding door, also a broken wall, which leads to a hallway with yellow lighting. After Ravi steps into the hallway, the floor creaks, the lights flicker, and Ravi falls through the null zone into the complex. Ravi explores the complex thoroughly. Eventually, his discovery leads him to a foul-smelling room with a dead body inside. Asterisk there, we don't actually know if that's what's there, but it's the best guess. Something then begins moving towards him. As he exits the room, he is pursued by something that has the intelligence to turn off light switches and knock on doors. Ravi eventually is able to lose it and discovers a dance studio and a makeshift radio tower. Whether the complex created this or someone else did is unclear. As Ravi attempts to contact someone with the radio, we see a little flash of green light, and Ravi picks up a police dispatch audio. As Ravi attempts to investigate the source of the radio chatter, the signal switches to a very loud song. As Ravi runs back to turn off the noise, he comes face to face with the still life, the thing that has been chasing him for some time now. And by the way, if you want more context into what a still life is, go back to the beginning of the video and re-listen to what I described it as there. Still Life then chases Ravi through back to the area with the makeshift radio tower, avoiding the Still Life by blocking the entrance to a hole he crawls through with a chair and a wardrobe. Ravi then stops the recording for an indeterminable amount of time. When the video resumes, Ravi seems to be in some industrial space with a portrait of Chairman Mao on the wall and various wires, stop signs, and other things sticking out of the ground. Ravi then makes his way to an office space with a large window showcasing a red city. Ravi then makes his way through the complex and discovers a cardboard cutout of a caveman. He then makes his way through to a house, which, upon entering, he hears a voice coming from the wall. The voice is revealed to be the owner of the house in Standard. Ravi pleads with him to help him out of the complex. The voice agrees to help Ravi by removing some of the wainscoting from the wall in Standard. As he does this, he accidentally triggers a null zone and is sucked into the complex, leaving Ravi alone and without any help. After an indeterminable amount of time, Ravi records what could be his final thoughts. He mentions a memory of a playground with a strange face on it that scared him. He can't remember the sky, which I think is one of the most horrifying things in the whole series, that line. Before the camera battery dies, Ravi says that he was going to try and fix things with somebody who he's talking to, who unfortunately will never hear his words. After the camera battery dies, presumably so does Ravi. Now, I quickly did want to mention the video I Remember in here. There is no date for this, nor is it actually in the Backrooms playlist, but it is important. I Remember features multiple different images that are important to the series, like the ocean and wind chimes and the sun, as well as Async and the complex itself. The best guess for this video is that it is Ivan reading a poem, basically commenting on the nature of the complex and his entire life, that he once had a home by the sea and it was taken, and now he is trying to, calling forth on strangled ears, and he basically calls the complex the greatest thing to ever exist, which is a sentiment we heard argued again by the character Phil in the movie. So this is another piece of evidence that ties us back to the Ivan Beck flood theory and all that. But yeah, so with I Remember out of the way, that is it. That is the complete Backrooms timeline from start to finish as we know it so far. I believe this video will probably come quickly out of dated as soon as Kane makes more stuff, but as of right now, this is everything we got. So thank you guys so much for watching. I also wanted to thank you all for the just tremendous support on all of my videos. I just hit 1,000 subscribers, which I never do anything on YouTube for notoriety or attention or anything. I just do this stuff for fun. So the fact that I never could have imagined that I'd even get to this point. So thank you guys so much. I have more videos planned. I'm going to do a dedicated movie analysis video coming next week. But yeah, and then we're just going to see where it goes from there. So once again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.